All right, welcome in everybody. Let's go ahead and get started here. Um, my name is Dan from Dan's Test Prep. Today we're going to do some more digital SAT prep. I know a lot of you have the test coming up pretty soon, so let's go ahead and get in some topics here. Anything you guys want to cover? I know last time we focused a lot on like Algebra 2. We have algebra topics, we have advanced math, geometry, trigonometry, statistics. I see advanced graphing and geometry. So advanced graphing, I'm not really sure if I know exactly what you mean, but there are some graph type questions that show up on the SAT that we could potentially go over. So let me see if I can find one of those. Oh, here's one. Here's an example of a question. It says here the function f of x equals 1/9 x minus 7 squared plus 3 gives a metal ball's height above the ground, x seconds after it started moving, blah blah. What's the best interpretation of the vertex of the graph in the xy plane? I mean, this one, you don't really have to graph in particular, but you do have to understand the characteristics of the graph, and sometimes graphing it out in Desmos might help you figure that out. Like x minus 7 squared plus 3. So this is what it looks like. Um, what I noticed here is the height above the ground is f of x. Height above the ground is f of x. And x is the number of seconds. So the vertex is where? The vertex is at 7, 3, which we could have also obtained this from the equation itself. What that means is there's 7 seconds, and it's a height of 3 inches. What answer choice matches with that? The minimum height was 3 inches above the ground. A looks correct. The minimum height was 7 inches above the ground. No, 7 was the time period which the minimum occurred. The ball's height was 3 inches above the ground when it started moving. No. The vertex is the minimum in this case. So it's minimum height 3 inches above the ground. Yep. Yeah, it's going to be A. Okay. See if I have any other graph-specific questions. Actually, I'm not sure. Okay. No, I found one. This could be like an example of advanced graphing question. We have a rational function defined by an equation in the form f of x equals a over x plus b. A and b are constants. The partial graph of y equals f of x is shown. If g of x equals f of x plus 4, which equation could define function g? So this is a trickier one, I think. One thing we can do here, so if you're not sure where to start at all, I would go into Desmos and plug in f of x equals a over x plus b, throw in some sliders for a and b, and kind of focus on the same bounds that the graph has here. It looks like the y-axis is going from -10 to 0, and the x-axis is doing the same thing. Move it up slightly like this. And it looks like it's becoming more asymptotic here near the -4. So what I want to do is maybe adjust my sliders until I get sort of the same behavior. I can play with the a values as well. Looking at some of the values here, it looks like their a value is usually 6 in that numerator, and the b value is 4 or 8. So I'm going to try 6 here. It looks like this is matching up pretty closely to what they gave us. And so the base function f of x could be something like 6 over x plus 4. This is the base function. And since this is our base function, if we take g of x equals x plus 4, or sorry, f of x plus 4, that's the same thing as 6 divided by x plus 4 plus 4. It's going to be answer choice C. As you can see, all we did when we made g of x that's equal to f of x plus 4, any x values that we previously had, we replaced those with x plus 4. So notice here I had 6 divided by x plus 4. I then I replaced my x with x plus 4, so it becomes x plus 8 in a denominator. We can g of x equals f of x plus 4. Basically just means that it's going to be shifted even further. So you can see here, it sort of looks like it's becoming asymptotic when x is equal to negative 4. So the new graph would be shifted more in this direction. So yeah, let's go with answer choice C for this one. It's a nice tricky graph question. What other categories did you guys say? I see reading, algebra 2, geometry. I remember seeing geometry, so let me paste in one more question from the graphing side of things, then we'll go into geometry and then some reading and grammar type questions. This one is saying the function p is defined as p of x equals x minus c squared plus 160 divided by 2c. C is a constant. If p of c equals 10, what is the value of p of 12? Honestly, I would probably plug it into Desmos just to get an idea of what we're dealing here. P of x equals x minus c squared plus 160, and then divide that whole thing by 2c. If we set a slider for c and we zoom out, I can see how that affects my graph. It says p of c is equal to 10. P of c is equal to 10. So there's one easy thing we can do here that, yes, you do have the slider tool on the exam, but you can set p, you can try p of c. P of c needs to be equal to 10, so let's adjust the value of c until we get it equal to 10. It looks like for that, c needs to be equal to 8. If you wanted to put this slider on your own, you can just type in the equation like I did, and then a button will come up here to add the slider. Or you can add it manually by saying c equals and putting some value. Then we can see the slider appear. So it looks like when c equals to 8, then p of c equals to 10. So now what's the value of p of 12? Well, if you know the value of c, I can now just use Desmos to evaluate p of 12, and it looks like that is equal to answer choice D, 11. Check out some geometry questions here as our next area. Okay, within geometry we have a few different topics. We've got area and volume, circles, lines, angles, and triangles, and right triangles in trigonometry. Anybody have a preference? Circles. Everybody loves circles, huh? Okay, let's do some of the harder circles questions. Okay. I don't know how hard this one is, but let's try it out. Everybody loves circles. This one says that point O is the center of the circle. The measure of OAB is 30 degrees. And the length of OC is 18. What is the length of arc AB? Well, one thing I know here is that from O to A and from O to B, those are the same, those are congruent sides. They're both also 18. That makes angle B also 30 degrees. And so this central angle right here at O is going to be 180 minus 30 minus 30. It's 120 degrees. Then to get the length of arc AB, we just need to use our arc length formula. That's x degrees over 360 times 2 pi r. Taking that portion of our circumference and radius is 18. So it looks like 1/3 times 9 pi, which should be, hold on, I'm made of 1/3 times 36 pi, which is 12 pi, which is answer choice B. Okay, let's look for some more triangle questions. I like this one. Next question here. Circle has endpoints 2, 4, and 2, 14. The equation of the circle is right here. R is positive constant. What's the value of R? Well, R is the radius. And you see here, a diameter passes through 2, 4, and 2, 14. That is 10 units. So the radius should just be 5. Yeah. Okay. Here's one that a lot of people get wrong if you're not careful. I'm sure you guys have got this. But we have circle A has this equation that's given. Circle B has the same center, but the radius of circle B is 2 times the radius of circle A. And that equation is defined by x plus 5 squared plus y minus 5 squared equals k. K is a constant. So if we want the radius to be 2 times, circle B has a radius 2 times the radius of circle A. Well, first we have to identify the radius from this first equation. The circle equation is always in x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared form. So the radius of A is 2. For B, we want the radius to equal 4. Then, if we look at the equation, k is our r squared value. So then we have to turn this into k equals r squared equals 4 squared, or k equals 16. Yeah, if you're studying for the SAT, I would focus on Khan Academy and the Blue Book probably. The trick question involving special right triangles. Okay, let me see what I have. Trick question with special right triangles. X is a hypotenuse and one side is a value of square root. I'm not sure how specific I can get to match up with your request, but I do have some special right triangle questions here. Like this one, for example. The perimeter of an equilateral triangle is 624 centimeters. An equilateral means all of the sides are the same length. Okay, problem. So each of these sides is just going to be 624 divided by 3. So what does that come out to? 208. Right. From here, we're going to need to use a 30, 60, 90 triangle. I'm going to split this equilateral triangle in half. So yeah, the whole thing is 208, but this small part is just 104. And remember, with our special right triangles, it's going to be this 30, 60, 90 triangle is going to have side length x, x root 3, and 2x. So if we're asked for the height, it's just going to be 104 root 3. Then k equals 104. What concepts should I focus on from Algebra 2 that are in the PSAT? Everything. I mean, like the PSAT. PSAT is like algebra heavy, but if you go in Khan Academy, there's a list of topics that you should know for algebra. That includes stuff like linear functions. You can maybe get into like some nonlinear function stuff, but mostly linear functions, systems of equations, things like that. Continue with our right triangle trigonometry. So this problem says we have an isosceles right triangle, and the perimeter is 94 plus 94 root 2 inches. What's the length in inches of one leg of this triangle? So isosceles right triangle means that we have a right angle somewhere, and that the other two sides have to be equal. And you may know this more commonly as a 45, 90 triangle. So the perimeter is 94 plus 94 root 2. Well, we can get the perimeter because we know that we have a side length s right here. We have a side length s right here. We have a side length s root 2 right here. So the perimeter in other terms is s plus s plus s root 2. Or 2s plus s square root 2. Okay, so we can now start simplifying this a little bit more. Like this right here we know is equivalent to this, but there's not a very clear way for me to match it up right now. Instead, what I might do is you could evaluate this as a decimal. You can plug in all of these answer choices into the second equation to see if they work, or you can solve for it directly. Like for example, if I factor out a s from here, I can get 2 plus square root of 2. And then we know that this in total is equivalent to this term right here. So let's set a new equation down here where I equate 94 plus 94 root 2 equals s times 2 plus root 2. Maybe there's a way I can get this quantity or these quantities to look the same. Like maybe there's something I can factor out on the left hand side that would make it match. So one thing I notice here, if I factor out something like 94, then I would get to 94 1 plus square root 2. So that's not quite what we want. If I factor out something like, well, this isn't the most intuitive approach, so from here I could just also divide by this coefficient of 2 plus square root 2. And then I can isolate my s. If you isolate the s, that's actually what we're solving for, so that's pretty beneficial for us to do. At this point, if you want to rationalize it, you can. You can also plug it into Desmos and see what this whole thing evaluates to. It looks like about 66.47. And that looks like it matches with answer choice B. Alternatively, 66.47, which is approximately equal to 47 root 2, just by evaluating those two. Honestly, I think that is quicker than what is like considered the quote-unquote right way, which is to rationalize this denominator by multiplying everything by its conjugate, multiply everything by 2 minus square root of 2, kind of distribute things out on the top, and see what everything simplifies down to. But you can also, let me write that as a note, you can also directly convert this to 47 root 2. But yeah, for the SAT, like whatever gets you the right answer is probably the method that you should use. Alright. So why don't we do some reading, writing, or grammar type questions here. see what we've got. So these ones are pretty focused on punctuation, so let me put some questions in here. Let's do this question next. Give you guys a second to read it. See what answers we get in chat. So, the haiku-like poems of Thomas Tranströmer, which present nature and dream-influenced images in crisp, spare language, have earned the Swedish poet praise from leading contemporary writers, among them Nigerian-American essayist and novelist Teju Cole, who has written that Tranströmer's works contain a luminous simplicity. I see an answer choice for, I see something D, B. There's some that I know we can rule out immediately, which would be A and C. A and C are both wrong because, well, functionally they're the same thing. Semicolon and a period function the same way. If we put a full stop there, then that second part, the one that starts with among them, it would not be a complete sentence. So one thing I notice here is that we're introducing, there's a supplementary phrase here. For the main phrase is the haiku-like poems have earned the Swedish poet praise from leading contemporary writers. The supplementary phrase here is among them a Nigerian American essayist and novelist. So it's kind of specifying an example here. We need some kind of boundary here, which means we're likely going to go with answer choice D. We're going to put a comma before we introduce this new phrase. So we have the main clause that starts us off, comma, and then our supplementary phrase that provides more details. And you can think about using commas to separate independent and dependent clauses. That's one of the key functions of a comma. Do another one here. SAT loves to test punctuation. So here's the next one. In addition to advocating for South America's independence in two political treatises, the Cartagena Manifesto and a letter from Jamaica, sorry, my mic cut out there. Simon Bolivar personally led armies against the Spanish, liberating 3 Southern American territories, New Granada, Venezuela, and Quito, from colonial rule. What are we thinking here? B. Everyone thinks B. A lot of answers for B. Okay. So the correct answer is not B, it's choice D. And yeah, looks confusing, right? We can eliminate A for sure because we never put commas inside the parentheses. But the reason we want this dash, this M dash, is because there was one earlier in the sentence where we introduced this new information. So this beginning M dash starts a new non-essential clause, and we need the ending M dash to denote, where that phrase ends. We didn't need to tell which 3 Southern American territories specifically, but we did. And because we did, we want to separate that with the dashes on either side, on both sides, to kind of show that it sets the information apart from the rest of the flow of the sentence. That one's a very tough one though. Do some other grammar questions that focus less on punctuation and more on like verb tense and things like that. Here we go. Should I alternate between math and English each day? I mean, you can. I would just suggest to do whatever works best for you, because that's the best study plan is the one that you'll stick to. The SAT tests all of those topics within the span of 2 hours, so you can do it in that same time period if you want, or you can just dedicate days to math and days to English. That seems like to be the preferred method for studying, but for taking practice tests, of course, you're forced to take everything together. Let me look at this question. In the 1970s, Janaki Amal, a prominent botanist, emerged as a powerful voice in India's environmental conservation movement. Her exhaustive chromosomal survey of plants in Silent Valley, a pristine tropical forest in Kerala, India, that is home to nearly 1,000 species of native flora, many of which are endangered, blank, instrumental in the government's decision to preserve the forest. Oh, that was such a mouthful. So really here, we have to identify what the subject is and the verb. The subject here, so the verb here is going to be are, were, have been, or was instrumental. So we need to figure out what was or what is or what are instrumental in the government's decision. And if I look earlier in this very same sentence, it says her exhaustive chromosomal survey of plants. Once I see the word of or that or some kind of qualifier, I know that this is no longer my subject. This is just a qualifying statement, descriptive statement. So right here from survey on out, I'm going to cross off all this stuff because those are just extra details describing her survey. And I see that the subject is survey. The survey are instrumental, the survey were instrumental, the survey have been instrumental, the survey was instrumental. And because survey is singular, we can say the survey was instrumental. Yeah, this session is just SAT stuff, so if you guys have SAT topics, I'm happy to cover them. But we aren't doing any like science stuff. I mean, this is a science passage, but really it's more SAT skills and reading skills that we're focusing on. Let's maybe do like one more question here. And let's make it a really, really long reading question. I'm gonna find the longest reading question that I can find here. Typically, those are like your command of evidence questions that have a graph. So that one might be too easy. Let's find like a hard one as well. Some of these questions end up taking like an entire page. Like this one. It's got a graph, it's got a passage, and then it's got these full line questions. What I like to do is skip a lot of the extraneous info, or skip the fluff, and kind of just go to what it's asking here. We want to find out what choice most effectively uses data from the graph to complete the text. They concluded that REM sleep may not be a homeostatically regulated in for seals, citing as evidence the fact that the seals in the study blank. Okay, so what did the seals in this study do? We can also, there are some words that we may not know, like homeostatically regulated, which they do touch upon. It says research suggests that REM sleep in animals is homeostatically regulated, and what that means is that animals compensate for periods of REM sleep deprivation by increasing subsequent REM sleep. When on land, fur seals get enough REM sleep, but during the weeks they're in water, they get almost none. In a study of fur seals' sleep habits, researchers recorded the REM sleep of fur seals once they had returned to land. They concluded that REM sleep may not be homeostatically regulated in fur seals. Okay, so they may not be compensating for periods of REM sleep deprivation by increasing their subsequent REM sleep. What it looks like is that fur seal REM sleep on land after an extended period in water. On day 1, we have these 3 seals sleeping this much, and on day 2 we have these 3 seals sleeping this much. If I compare within seal to seal, like seal B slept less on day 2, most of them slept less on day 2 except for seal C, which slept a little bit more. So looking at the choices here, the seals in the study didn't show significantly less REM sleep during the second day after returning to land than they did during the first day. Well, that's not really supporting the conclusion. We want something that kind of shows, that supports their conclusion that REM sleep may not be homeostatically regulated in fur seals. And that hypothesis is basically saying animals are compensating by sleeping more later on when they get sleep deprived. They showed no significant differences from one another in baseline levels of REM sleep. That's just false. They did show significant differences from seal to seal. Didn't consistently demonstrate a significant increase in REM sleep after their period of deprivation in the water. That kind of, so let's mark that one because that kind of matches with what we're trying to conclude, that REM sleep may not be homeostatically regulated because they didn't show a significant increase in REM sleep after their period of deprivation in the water, and showed no significant difference between REM sleep after returning to land and REM sleep while in the water. Well, we don't know what the REM sleep in the water was, so answer choice C is going to be our best one here. They didn't show a huge increase in REM sleep after their period of deprivation. How are you feeling on that one? Nice. Yeah, I think this is a good stopping point for us. I've got to go, but let's save some of these topics for next time. You guys can definitely also check out the recording of this on my YouTube. You can bring topics for next time, and we'll definitely meet and go over whatever else we need to get you guys ready for the March SATs. But yeah, thanks for coming. I'll see you guys next week.